Okay, so what we're going to do today, guys, we are going to mount and label the Apple Still Life project, okay? Now, if your project's not finished, which that is probably the case for the majority of you, I am not finished working on this particular drawing. That is fine, but regardless if you're finished or not, everybody should mount and label their project right now. This is the only time that you're going to have to do this step, in class. So what you need right now is just a ruler, you need a pencil with an eraser, you need your project, and then you need that black piece of paper that I gave you. This has already been cut to size, so we will not need to trim or cut this paper whatsoever. You need to make sure, and this is going to be a little hard for me to show on the screen just because my overcam's not tall enough, but it should be taller. It should be a vertical, so it's taller than it is wide. So our project is going to basically go up here towards the top. We're going to have 1 inch at the top, 1 inch at the sides, and you're going to have a lot of extra paper down here at the bottom. But first what we need to do is we need to measure up here. And this is going to be the same thing that we did for our contour shoe drawing. You guys need to be using a pencil for this step. I am going to be using a white color pencil just so that way it shows up on the screen, okay? So I want everybody to grab your ruler. I'm going to be using a metal ruler just because it shows up better on the video. But if you have a clear acrylic ruler, which a lot of you guys do, remember that the measurements do not start at the end of the ruler. Okay, you guys can see that. So they do not start at the end of the ruler, they start where it says 0. So you need to make sure that you're reading your ruler correctly. So what I'm going to do, and I'm going to kind of zoom into this, the top of my paper, you want to measure just 1 inch from the top of your paper. Now, if you need to stand up out of your seat, that's fine. So you need to make sure that the beginning of your measurements on your ruler matches right up there to the top of your paper. And then you're going to put a mark right where it says 1 inch. And I'm just going to kind of mark a mark kind of off to the side like that. I'll kind of move that off so you can see. And again, this is just right at the top of my paper, so 1 inch from the top. All right, the next step is going to be to measure 1 inch from, you could do it really from any side, but I'm going to just measure 1 inch from the left since it's easier to show on the screen. So turn your ruler. So now that it is matched up to the left side of your paper, and make a mark right where it says 1 inch. Okay, so again, just make a mark right where it says 1 inch, and I'll move that away just a little bit so you can see that. So just as a review, I measured 1 inch from the top of my paper, made a mark. You should be using your pencil for these. I'm using a white color pencil. And then measure 1 inch from the left side. I'm going to come walk around and check your marks to see that you did it right before we could move on to the next step. So the next thing we're going to do, guys, the next step is to glue our project down. Now, don't do anything yet. I want you to watch this first. I'm going to zoom out of this. Now, remember that your paper should be tall, okay? A lot of you guys had your paper turned. So when we put this down on our project, again, you're going to have 1 inch at the top, 1 inch at the sides, and you are going to have a lot of extra paper at the bottom, okay? If you have your paper turned the other way, you're going to have more on the sides and less underneath. So that's an important thing to do. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this over. Again, do not do this until I show you. So what you're going to do, you're going to take your rubber cement and you want to take off a lot of the glue that's on the brush. You do not need a lot. Okay? And then you're just going to basically frame out the corner, and then I take the brush and I just drag it towards the center, and that gets the glue in the middle of the paper. And so I do this again. So I go back into the bottle, get new glue, frame out the corner, and then drag it towards the center. And that's really all the glue that you need. You do not want to put a ton of this on here because it will likely never come off. Rubber cement is not supposed to be a permanent adhesive. And it's really gentle to the projects, doesn't soak through the paper. So, but if you use too much, it can be bad. So again, same thing. So I'm going to have these arrows and I'm going to drag them into the center. And then, once I have the glue down, I'm going to use those marks as guides as to where I need to put the project. But again, I'm not going to push this down yet. I'm going to just double check to make sure that my measurements are right, and I can kind of move my project to adjust it if I need to. And again, I want 1 inch at the top and the 2 sides. Once I have that, then you got, and this is the hard part because you got you've got pencil all over this. You just have to kind of use your fingertips and just very gently push that down. Okay? Now, I want you to go ahead and place your drawing. Don't glue it yet. I want you to place your drawing where you're going to glue it down. I'm going to check it, and if it looks good, then I'm going to tell you to glue it. Okay? But don't glue it until I check it. All right, the next thing we're going to do, we're going to fill out the label for the project, okay? So what you need for that is your label and your ultra-fine Sharpie marker, so get that out. Give you guys a minute to get that. And what I suggest that you do, so that we don't get marker on our project, is turn this over so that your project is facing the table. So that way you don't get any marker on your project. So again, I would not be writing directly on top of your drawing. We're not going to put it on the back, but I'm just writing it on here so that way the ink doesn't get on my project. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to fill out your artist name, which is your first and last name. Make sure that you properly capitalize your name. First letter in your first name should be big. First letter in your last name should be big. Okay? You want to use your nicest, neatest handwriting. Okay? You do not want to be sloppy on this label. If you mess up, do not worry. I have extra labels. So go ahead and write your name on there. All right, the next thing I'm going to write down here is media. Media is the art materials that we used on the project. So for this particular project, we used graphite pencils. That's what I'm going to write. I suggest that you wait to see what it looks like when I write this. So that way you know how to spell this. So there you go. I'm going to put that up nice and high so that you guys can see that. So you want to write graphite pencils. All right, the next thing we're going to do, I'm going to skip title. We'll come back to that later. I'm going to go to class. Now with the class, again, remember it needs to be properly capitalized. It's a name, okay? So you may want to wait to see what this looks like till you write it down yourself. We are in Fine Art 1. We're going to use the Roman numeral 1. And then what you also want to do is add your class period to that. I am not going to write anything down there because I don't want to confuse anyone who's watching this video. So I have 3 different Fine Art 1 classes. So if you're period 1, write period 1 there. If you're 2, write 2. If you're 3rd, write 3. Okay? So you guys can go ahead and write your class period on there now. Okay, so title. Title, you want to make sure your title connects to the piece. So whatever you do, you need to name it something that connects to the drawing. So, you don't have to have the word apple in it, but you can if you want to, but it's not necessary, okay? Remember that all titles need to be properly capitalized, okay? It's a title, it's just like a title of a book, title of a song, title of artwork falls in that same category, okay? So, I'm going to make this real simple. And you can be very creative with this if you want to, okay? But whatever you do, I don't want to see a million red apples, just like mine, okay? I want you to come up with your own title, okay? So I'll give you a couple minutes to think of that. And again, you don't have to have the word apple in the title to make it valid. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and zoom out. I'm going to show you guys where this label is going to go. Now, like I said off camera, if you didn't come up with a title, that's fine. You can leave that blank until you figure that out. It's kind of hard because I can't show this whole thing. So your label is going to go right underneath your project. You're going to have a little bit of space in between the project and the label, and you're just going to center it. There's no need to measure it. Just kind of eye it in the middle. And so once you figure out where that's got to go, you're going to take your rubber cement. And again, remember, wipe off that excess glue. You don't need a lot. And then I just focus on the glue being sort of in and around the edges. And then I just kind of take one swipe through the middle, and that's good enough. And then if you have to, it is helpful to stand up when you're trying to center this so you can see your project a little bit better. Move it till it's in the center. Get a little bit of space in between the artwork and the label. And then you can press it down once you're settled on where it needs to go. You should have extra paper down here at the bottom, and that's fine. Okay? The last thing you want to do is we want to sign it in the lower right-hand corner. Okay? So you want to sign your artwork in the lower right-hand corner. My lower right-hand corner is pretty light, so I'm going to just use my 4H pencil for this. But if your lower right corner happens to be dark, you may need to use a darker pencil. But whatever you do, make that signature really small. You can barely see it on the screen. That's good. Make it really small and light. So I'm just using my initials. Just like that. Nice and small and light. Now, if you want to write just your first name or just your last name, if you want to use print or cursive writing, that is completely up to you. But make sure that it's small and light. Okay? So we're going to use the rest of the class to finish this project. Okay? So we'll get the still life set back up. You guys can get your drawing pencils and the rest in your kneaded eraser out. And then we'll talk about how to finish this on the next video. That's it.